Good morning and welcome to Fat Cow Farm. Peter here. Now, what I wanted to talk to you today, it's a little bit of a sad issue, I think. So here we are in the Victorian High Country, and I haven't seen rain now for just over 5 weeks, and it is really, really dry. And today's like I had to start feeding the cows a roll of hay. Just to see what's going on, because come March, and hopefully we get some rain by then, we're going to be looking at sowing a lot of our perennials, our ryegrass perennials, tall fescue, things like that for the winter. But in saying that, you know, everything's changing, and look, I'm only a first generation farmer giving it a crack, and you know, we've only been doing this for 4 years. I think a lot of you would pretty much know that. But I haven't seen it like this at all. And so what I really wanted to do was talk to you about water harvesting, because I think that the next rain that we get, it is going to be absolutely massive, which is then going to wash a lot of stuff away, and it's not going to have time to soak in, and it just goes on and on and on. So let's have a look at some of these leaky weirs that we put in. I want to show you what irrigation does do to certain areas, and I want to show you how dry we are. Like, it is insanely dry. All right, so what I'm going to do, we'll turn this camera around. I'm going to show you this leaky weir, and I think you'll be surprised about what's actually going on. All right, I'll see you soon. All right, so this is one of those dry gullies that we had, and we've started sort of throwing a heap of rock in there, leaky weirs, just to hold up some of this water to start seeping in. And check this out. Not massive, but there's another little leaky weir there. Now, we don't have a heap of flow, but I'm not sure if you're going to be able to pick this up. But just in there you can see we have a little bit of flow. Oh, here's a better section. And that gives you an idea about what we've got going on. So what's happening is that the water still runs through all these rocks. Here we've got like a larger pond, deep pond, and so on and so on. All right, now I'm just going to flip this camera around again. Just bear with me. All right, so what you can see is that now that over those rain events over winter and things like that, and debris gets caught into these dry creek beds, and with your rocks and things, you know, put into place, what we find is that the debris breaks down, gets into those rocks, and causes like a natural dam, a beaver, I suppose. And so what's happening is that it gives the water time to absorb horizontally, laterally, okay, through the landscape. Now, what's been happening, so here, what are we? We're at the middle of February. Haven't seen rain for ages, and I still have moisture coming out of, let's call it the floodplain, all right, out of the landscape, coming back into this dry creek bed. And as we can see, it's probably about half. And so what's happening is that I'm noticing the wildlife at night, the kangaroos, wombats, all those sort of animals are coming on down. The cows are using this causeway for, you know, like a halfway stop rather going to a stock trough, things like that. And the noise at night or coming on dusk is just insane. The amount of frogs and things like that. Like, it's just so alive now. But in also saying that, I don't have enough moisture going back up into the ground, and a lot of the moisture is now coming out and into the creek, which is then a detriment to my pasture. So it's one way or the other, really. But still having some moisture on a property is absolutely fantastic. And this is really what we've got to sort of go towards. You know, I've got a lot of ferns and duckweed and things like that. Like the camels spend a lot of time down here eating all the duckweed and things. But it's, you know, the events have changed. So the drier periods, what I'm noticing from our log, are getting longer and longer and longer and longer. And we've just had a massive spate, you know, probably about 3 weeks of high 30s, low 40s, something like that, like a summer that I used to remember as a kid. So they're sort of coming through the system now, and this is what worries me the most, is that next rain event that we get, it will be an absolute monster. You know, I'd be saying that it's probably going to be over 50 mil. Might even be 100, you know, compared to what's happening up north in Queensland. You know, they're absolutely getting flogged, and down here we're dry as a crisp. So there's a lot of things that are changing, and I think that really what has to happen now is that, and it's really brought this on over the last couple of weeks, is that it is so important to manage and harvest as much water as you possibly can from the landscape. You know, i.e. rain, getting that moisture back into the soils with keylines and swales and things like that. Now, I've been looking around the area, and a lot of people had started feeding hay. Geez, man, it would have been at least pretty much around Christmas, maybe, you know, 2 months ago. And I'm just gutted that I have to roll out my first roll today. And what are we? We're middle of February. And just desperately, you know, if we had a little bit of rain in between, the grasses would have kicked off and everything would have been sweet as. But I suppose that's farming, isn't it? And you have to really look at your environment and manage what is going on. And I know now that over winter, once these soils get a little bit softer, it is going to be full ball, all about trying to maximize the amount of rain and moist activity to get back into the soil, so I can now prolong a little bit longer. And I know that I have to sort of aim for that dry periods of, you know, a month to 2 months, maybe even 2.5. You know, that would just break me. But it's one of those sort of scenarios that that we're really going to have to start looking at. All right, so what I want to do now is show you an area where it's irrigated, and this is what I'm finding to be one of the better situations that we have, is that I've got a lot of green spots coming up, which is signifying that I have a seep or a spring, ones that I never even noticed before, and it's only because it's just standing out with green grass compared to this dry matter that we've got everywhere. All right, so let me turn the camera around and I'll see you soon. All right, I've just walked up a bit and I wanted to show you what this creek bed actually looked like. Now, this is up one of the top sections, and what I've done is we've done the leaky weirs on the bottom. Now, as you can see, you know, I've got no moisture content whatsoever. It's just highly eroded underneath those banks. Truckloads of blackberries. And like I was saying, you know, people were asking, oh, I know, do you have photos of before you did the leaky weirs and things like that? And this is pretty much what it was like. Just, you know, I can see that there's a bit of green grass going on up there. So there must be something, some deeper moisture content back down there. But this is typically what it was like. And this was a section here where I had some excess rocks that I'd thrown in, and these are just the rocks I got from just around the pastures when I was mulching and things like that. But this is typically what it was like, and basically what we're finding is that there's You know, there's truckloads, people of maybe previous owners. That looks like a log that's been burnt. But that's typically what I have, or what I had. Compared to the section that you just saw earlier this morning where we've been working, a lot of that moisture is now still apparent and on the surface, you know, so that's typically really what we're all about here. And so I know that this section through here has to have a lot more work done to it, and then we can go from there. So you can see all the thistles running through here. So they're like a really long tap root going down to pick up moisture, compacted soils. So that's telling me that, you know, the cows at some time, maybe pre-me, were using this as a crossing, and it's all just compacted deep soils and clays and stuff like that. So anyway, that's another area for us to have a look on, but I'll take you up to this irrigated area, and then we can go from there. So I'll see you soon. All right, so here we are on our little experiment that we've got going on, and as you can see, you know, we're super dry, yeah, like golden brown, and you can now see that there's green coming through. So what we've been doing is working on this area through here with overflow. Now this, because we've only done it in a small section because I really wanted to see what happened, but we from those who have been following, this little rainwater tank there, that's fed by our seep. So we've got a seep that we made a collection point for, and that just fills up in there, and that goes off and feeds off stock troughs. But the overflow comes into this Keyline, and I'm thinking to myself, this is really what has to happen for the environment that I'm in, is that every time that we have a harvest point, rainwater tank, or whatever it may be, it's that the overflow needs to go somewhere where we can use it. So what we have here is basically our it's a Keyline that we've been working on, and as you can see, there's still truckloads of water in this. Now what we're finding here, and this is very similar to that of the Leaky weirs, where the amount of bird life, like we have so many ducks that come up here, and it's just amazing to see all the different life that sort of comes about, just to sort of have a drink and see what's going on. But I'm thinking that this is something that, yes, it's an example, but I think that or an experiment, but I think really at the end of the day, this is something that I've got to try and work out for the whole farm. So every time I have, like I said before, a rainwater tank or whatever it may be, the overflow then sort of carries on through these swales. Now you can see where that green, it sort of stops there. So I must have been a little bit, I don't know, maybe sunstroke, that where I've got my slight gradient on my Keyline, it sort of bellowed out a bit and then drops down. So what I'm thinking, and that's probably not half a bad idea, is that what we do is, you know, let's say we work on a higher landscape and we have a slight angle coming down on Keyline, maybe 1 or 2 degrees across. We then pick up or have a trench or start a new Keyline on the end of, we start another Keyline at the end of that Keyline. So the water can run and then come back. Comes back through the property like so, and then we pick up this one. You know, and that then follows the little bit, like I said, 1 or 2 degrees on the contour, goes around and then comes back again. And I think that with these dry events that we're having, now I'm looking at the grass through here and it has just been absolutely flogged. So basically, you know, every kangaroo in the whole area comes here, every wombat, you know, all our cows have come here, and the sheep and goats and all sorts of stuff. come to pick up a little bit of fresh green grass. As we drop down, I've got another area just here. Again, it's not wet on the surface, but there must be something from here that travels down and under, and then it sort of gets close to the surface at this point here, and then as you can see, that goes off into our front lake. Now, it's almost going to be one of those sort of scenarios where, and I've been thinking about it, like I said, I've been thinking about it for a while, and having these little solar transfer pumps periodically, you know, down a paddock or down a pasture or whatever it may be, so that when, you know, you might only run it for 2 or 3 hours a day or something like that, just enough to fill the Keyline, and then let it, you know, drop off to another one. And I need to think a little bit more about it, how we can, you know, do we make one massive Keyline zigzagging through the property, or do we have multiple outlets from the pump where, you know, we pump on one Keyline for half an hour and then pump another one for another half an hour and then pump another one for half an hour, or whatever it may be. But this is where sort of our experiment base with those little pump stations that we put everywhere is that obviously you need a water source. And is that something that you then set up rainwater tanks for, or in turn do you take it from your water source and start irrigating out onto the pastures? But I think from now on, when we start looking at tanks and water harvesting and things like that, I have to take a very different approach about how I'm going to do things, because really at the end of the day, I'm not being able to rely on consistent rain. I've got a lot of hot weather, and being, you know, only farming for a couple of years now, I'm starting to see the trials and tribulations that farmers go through. So anyway, look, let me turn this camera around. So I'll see you soon. All right, so, you know, here we go. Excuse noisy buggers. So this is really where we're sort of, you know, having a look at what really needs to be done in the future. And I think this is what it's really all about, is that future proofing, but also having a look at those so many what ifs. There are truckloads of what ifs, you know. So I know that come autumn that I've got to put new Keylines in, and you know, they'll be going in between the older ones and things like that. And this year what we're going to be doing is putting a cover crop in those, and a lot of people had said that to us with the comments made, and it makes sense. You know, it is so simple, but it makes sense. We missed it, absolutely missed it. So there's going to be a lot of things that, you know, I can see that things evolving, and that's really what it's really coming down to. So, you know, if you're really on a steep property, and there's a few sections here where I'm like, oh geez, I just don't know what to do, because I really love those C-flow pumps, those 12-volt pumps, and working on solar, absolutely fantastic. But I think what I'm going to have to do is like bunny hop, have a rainwater tank, set up another pump house, go to another one, pump up to another water tank, and so on and so on and so on, because I'm not getting that push that I really need, because I've got, you know, from our dam, you can see behind me, that's the front one, that, you know, where I want to take the water, it's not like on the other side where I've got, I think it was a 18 or 20 meter elevation. You know, I'm more like 30, and I can't do that in one pump. So what I'm going to have to do is sort of bunny hop, and so there's a lot of things that I need to start putting into. I need to draw a few things out to see if it actually will work, and then do an experiment, and go from there. But what I can see, and like what we've just seen on that video, is that the Keyline's being irrigated. Fantastic. How can I make that a little bit more permanent, I suppose, is the question I'm constantly asking myself. And I think the only way that I can sort that out is with overflow or direct pumping and irrigation that way. but then you've got so much, you know, so much land that you have to cover. Do you focus on one paddock, you know? So, and it just goes on and on and on. But I think as things improve, you know, you might say, right, I'm going to do the top section first. You always start at your high point and let gravity take the water where it needs to, and I think that's really the key. But yeah, look, you know, it's one of those sort of scenarios that I'm not going to say that the environment's changing. I think it's more that the events are changing. Like I was saying at the start, where the rain events, and I think I've said this previously before, is that you know, when we get rain, you know, we get rain, and it's full on. And you know, I hate the fact that, you know, if you didn't have grass and you just had bare soil, you'll be losing so much topsoil. You got to start again. And getting that 100% cover and having the chance for that rain to seep into the ground, you know, and that's, I suppose, where the key lines start. Harvesting that rain, you know, in troughs and in dams and swales and things like that, so that it can be used later on, or soak back into the ground, and you know, so there's a lot of things that need to sort of really evolve, and I'm you know, bringing this to everyone's attention. I suppose everyone's been thinking about this for a long time, but because I'm only a new farmer, it's just like, wow, why did that wasn't in the manual? You know, it's just like, come on, you know, that's one of the most important things that we needed to look at is water. But look, anyway, it's certainly things to think about, and I thought I'd give you the opportunity to show you how those little leaky weirs were going and what's actually happening on the pastures. A lot of people have been asking, so I do apologise for the delay, but eventually we get here. We've just been so busy with this weather at the moment, and trying to focus on and steering a lot of our water towards the chicken veggie coop and all that sort of stuff, because I've just got to crack on with this without trying to be 100% self-sufficient. And again, you know, I think it's only 2 weeks away, and I'll give you an update about how that's going on. So, you know, absolutely fantastic, and I love it. And it's you know, just sort of deviating a little bit, what I'm finding is that, you know, we're finding recipes for things like, you know, one of the things that we have to buy are pawpaw, and I love pawpaw. And I was reading an article the other day, and someone said that once the seeds are dried, it's like pepper, and I'm like, what? No way. So that's this week. I'll dehydrate some of the seeds from the pawpaw and see what's going on there, because if that's like pepper, well, that's something else, you know, that you can just tick off your list. And I thought, how fantastic is this? But yeah, like, you know, I have to spend my $1.99 on a pawpaw every couple of days. So it's just all these little things that sneak up. So if anyone's got any ideas of a massive tall hoop house or greenhouse, you know, that I could grow pawpaw trees and bananas and stuff like that, I'd be pretty keen on some designs. So send them out there, mate. I love my bananas and tropical fruit. So anyway, all right, guys, look, thanks for listening. Bit of a rant and rave, but I think, you know, it's certainly something that we all need to start considering, is that, you know, we have to evolve with the climate change. Not so much climate change, that's the wrong word. The climate events is really what I'm trying to say. And you know, like, throw it out there. This community needs to grow, and what works for me could work for someone else. All right, guys, like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.